Now, let's introduce our next guest into the studio here. Recently on the show, we took up a listener's challenge to find him a driving lesson. Not a big deal, you might think, but Andy, our listener, is blind. And it was a great success. And driving instructor Marc Ford was inspired to teach behind-the-wheel skills to other people who might not normally think themselves as potential drivers. Marc's been back in touch with his latest success story, teaching people with special educational needs, and is here live to tell us more. Warm welcome to you, Marc.
Good morning.
Thank you. Welcome to the madness here in the studio. That was close.
Yeah, it was.
Now then, we've heard with your dealings and your teachings of Andy, you're turning your attention now to another challenge. Tell us about the latest.
Yeah, well, it came off the back of Andy's blind challenge. I'd already been teaching one particular pupil with dyslexia and dyspraxia, and it actually ended up that I was recognised and asked to take part in a course called Revolutions, which has been designed by a driving instructor who is autistic. She was actually on autistic driving school on BBC Three last year. Her name's Julia Makin. And this particular course is designed to help equip other driving instructors to be able to teach pupils with dyslexia, dyspraxia, Asperger's, autism, ADHD, how to drive, give them some more toolkits rather than just a case of, right, one size fits all. Yeah. So got inspired by that. We've set up HD Ability, and it's starting to become a really good success.
So what's the approach then, Marc? We're going to meet one of your students in a moment, Andy Smith, who has dyslexia, but some of your students, as you've just mentioned, have more challenging obstacles. If you have someone come to you, say, with autism, what's the approach? Where do you start? What's different?
With autism, we have to check whether they're able to drive, because they do need to contact the DVLA and tell them about their autism. What you'll find is that it's black or white with an autistic person. They actually take in their information so much quicker than, say, you or I, for instance. And if you don't do it correct first time, it's so much harder to get them to do it correctly. So if, for instance, I got them to pull off and never got them to check the blind spot on their first attempt, it would take me 6, 7, 8 weeks to even get them to check the blind spot because I hadn't done it the first time around.
Right.
And things with imagination. So if we're driving down a road and there are parked cars on the left-hand side, I could turn around to a neurotypical pupil and say, what might happen as you go past the parked cars? A neurotypical pupil would say, oh, somebody might step out. With an autistic person, they may just turn around and go, well, we'll drive past them. And you have to paint the picture for them, so you have to rephrase certain things. So as we're coming up to the parked cars, as you go past the parked cars, there is a pedestrian on the left-hand side. What would you reasonably expect that pedestrian to do? Cross. And then that suddenly goes into their long-term memory. So, yeah, it's a different way of phrasing things, different way of doing things, and you have to be more precise, if I'm totally honest.
Big learning curve for you, I would imagine.
Yes, these grey hairs have come overnight, yes.
But I guess once you've done it and once you realise, as you've just said, the technique for the specific, the specific condition that you're dealing with, then you become a dab hand, I suppose. You know what you're doing after lesson 3, 4.
Yes.
Or pupil 3, 4.
Yeah, pupil 3, 4. Julia's course is absolutely fantastic. She herself is autistic, and so we recreate a lot of the problems that we could face in the car and a lot of the techniques. One of the things I want to get over is that we don't diagnose. We're not going to do that. It's handy for us to have these tools in our toolkit because we can pick up on elements. So if somebody, for instance, hasn't been diagnosed as dyslexic, but they're showing traits, rather than say, oh, you've got to go away and go and get sorted, actually we can just deal with it in a normal way. So nobody's sort of like, on edge going, oh, he thinks I'm dyslexic or he thinks I'm dyspraxic. It's just one of those things. We just deal with it as a normal teacher should deal with it, if that makes sense.
And are you guys trailblazing in the UK? I've never heard of what you're doing.
We're starting to. It's starting to take off. Julia.
But are you the only people doing it?
Locally, as far as we know. I mean, there are some great instructors out there. Don't get me wrong. There are some fantastic instructors out there. I know many of them. And it's just the fact that we're just trying to tailor it to the local area, because we can start some of the pupils earlier at Throckmorton under 17, so they're in a much safer environment. Nerves, pressure, that type of thing obviously exacerbates problems. So if we're in a nice safe area, whether they be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, we can actually take them off-road, learn the basics so that they can get the coordination skills, they can feel comfortable, they can feel relaxed, and then take that step to go out onto the road. Which is the next step, which is normally we don't have to worry about them. It's everybody else on the road we have to worry about.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's true for everyone, to be fair, isn't it? One student you've helped through his driving test, Andy Smith, who's driven over to see us. What were your thoughts when you first met Andy?
Andy, bless him, a top man, very shy, very, very nervous. His mum has often told me of her regret that she never mentioned that he had dyslexia and dyspraxia. It was one of the things that I picked up very, very quickly. And it's been a real journey for him. He was very, very shy, very quiet. And I've seen him grow into a very confident young man. And the day he passed his driving test, I don't think I've seen anybody smile so wide in my life.
How did you feel?
I was just over the moon. I was really pleased. As a grown man who's not normally reduced to tears, I did have a slight tear in the corner of my eye because I was so proud of him because he'd worked so damn hard for it and he achieved what he wanted to do.
Well, this is what Andy and his mum had to say.
Looks as if you arrived here safely then, Andy. How was that for you?
Yeah, that was quite good.
More to the point, how was that for you, Mum, Helen?
Oh, it was fine, thank you. Yeah, he's a really good driver. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You say that. You're saying that through gritted teeth, are you? Or?
No, it's a bit nerve-wracking getting in the car with them to start with, but it gets better.
So, Andy, tell us how long it's taken to pass your test.
It's taken just under 2 years, isn't it?
Quite a long time, really, because normally young people at the age of 17 are raring to get in behind the wheel and get going. Did you find you had difficulties?
Yes, yeah. Mainly with my lefts and rights.
So is that because you have dyslexia?
Yes, yeah. Well, there was a number of other things with noticing spacing and, judging distances, which is also linked in with my condition.
When you say spaces, it's, for instance, when you're on a motorway, you see the chevrons that say leave two chevrons between you and the next car. Is that the sort of thing you have difficulty with?
Oh no, that would be fine, but it's when I have to put the spacing there myself. Well, for example, I failed, I think it was my second test for getting too close to parked cars, which isn't actually hitting the parked cars, it's just reducing the distance between yourself and them.
Is this something you noticed as well with Andy, Helen? Did you take the plunge? Did you take him for any lessons at all?
I didn't take him for any lessons, no, but I got regular updates from his driving instructor, Marc, every time we brought him back about how he was doing and how he was performing and everything. Marc, from the very first lesson, picked up that Andy had a problem, which is a miracle in itself because not a lot of people notice, So for somebody to pick it up from his very first lesson and know that Andy had a problem with dyslexia it was amazing to me. So I had full faith in his driving instructor and to carry him on, and see him through eventually, which is what he did.
Did you know you had dyslexia before you started driving then?
Oh yes, I did. I just didn't think it was, linked in with driving. I didn't think it would have any effect, to be honest.
And so do you now, because you're aware of the fact it does have a reflection on your driving, do you have to think very carefully whether you're going right or left, or?
Yes, yeah, I do tend to pay a little more attention.
Do you work on sat-nav as well? Does that help at all?
Well, no, not really. It's mainly about having the route visualised in my head. So if I know where I'm going, so if I've seen it, for instance, on Google Maps or something, then I'll be perfectly fine. But if I'm just listening to a sat nav telling me to go left or right, I might end up going right.
You may end up anywhere. Have you been lost at all at any time, Helen, with him, or?
No.
No, you can't think of a time that we've been lost trying to get anywhere that we haven't managed to get there.
Not with you driving.
No.
Yeah. Well, look, you're fairly safe at the moment. We're not going anywhere. Can you just check you're in neutral for me?
Yeah. Yes, I'm in neutral.
Okay. Handbrake on?
Handbrake
yes. On. Okay, well, would you like to turn the engine on just again to see what it feels like? And how was that for you?
Oh, that was very pleasant. It's the second time I've got to do that today, and it's the first time in life.
Andy and his mum talking there. And Marc, just before we go to our next guest as well, on the back of that, listen, that's the first time you've heard that.
Yeah.
You're chuckling away and going, yes, oh, good, he remembered that, and oh, brilliant. And I can see the emotion in your face. It meant so much that you got through all that.
Yeah, it did. Like I said, the guy would hardly say boo to a goose when he first got in the car. Now you can't shut him up, which is really good.
That's
but
confidence.
It is confidence, but when he's lefts and rights, yes, I do remember one occasion when I asked him to turn right and we ended up on somebody's driveway. So if that was your driveway, we do apologise, but yeah, we got off very quickly.
Wonderful. Now let's join Kathy Parvin, who's from Worcester, a national trainer for the Dyspraxia Association. In fact, Kathy's daughter has just started lessons and she joins us here on BBC Hereford and Worcester now. Good morning to you, Kathy.
Oh, good morning. Hi.
Kathy, your daughter has dyspraxia, but for those listening who are not familiar with this condition, can you just preliminarily just explain dyspraxia for us?
Yes, it's difficult to explain in a few words, but basically it's a coordination difficulty. But there are also lots of hidden aspects to dyspraxia as well to do with sensory processing. So, yes, it is a difficult condition to understand and to deal with, but it's incredibly common as well, actually. They reckon there's about 10% of the population with dyspraxia or dyspraxic-type tendencies. So it is incredibly common and yet poorly understood.
Marc mentioned confidence there, and you say about coordination with dyspraxia. Does your daughter worry about getting behind the wheel?
Lydia's initial thoughts when I first approached her about it was, no, there's no way I can drive. I'll be totally unsafe. That's for other people. She had no concept of herself ever being able to achieve actually driving. So it took us a long time to actually persuade her to have a go. That was the first hurdle, due to a low confidence, really.
What are the legalities, Kathy, with that sort of condition, which could jeopardise, Lydia's safety as well as the road users? Where does the law stand on these conditions?
Well, there is no reason why they can't learn to drive at all. Dyspraxia varies hugely, and obviously if it's impacting, then you would probably need medical approval of that with a DVLA. But for most majority, as long as they are behind the wheel and can pass their test, there's absolutely no reason why they can't drive. They just need an instructor who understands them, and that's absolutely key. And for me, this is a breath of fresh air to find somebody that actually understands their condition and can teach them in a safe environment. They get there. And Lydia rides a bike, she swims, she goes to a mainstream school. They get there. They just need understanding.
How many lessons has Lydia had already?
She's only had 2. The first one, she was so bowled over. She said, oh, that just felt like it was somebody else doing it, not me. Was that real? Mm. And then the second time to see her face coming down the airfield. And of course, for me, she's just about to turn 16, so she's getting all those, that basic learning in a very safe environment before she does go on the road. And for me, and having Marc, who really understands her, he's really building up her confidence. So even by the second lesson, her face was a complete picture, and it was such a boost that she's beginning to dawn on her that actually she can do it and it is achievable.
Well, let's bring Marc in here. Can you echo Mum's sentiments there? Has Lydia changed in confidence? And
absolutely, yeah. She keeps leaving with a great big smile on her face. She's a diddy thing, is Lyd, but she just the fact that she was driving down the runway, she kept looking across at me, going, "Am I moving the car?" Yes, that's you. Look, my feet are either side of the pedals, nothing to do with me, completely down to you.
How old is Lydia, by the way?
She's just about to turn 16. She's 15 at the moment.
Right.
So, like Kathy said, it's a great environment to build the confidence, because unfortunately, with some of these educational needs, it crushes their confidence. They find it difficult to deal with sometimes, and it's one of those things that, like Kathy said, if you've got a bit of empathy and you sort of know how to deal with it, you can see that confidence increase very, very quickly.
How about, Marc, let me ask you, when Lydia comes to the point, and when Andy did come to the point of passing the test, As far as the pressure goes, how do you deal with that? Because that must compound the condition quite a lot. If it all builds up, all the pressure builds up to 1 hour. That's quite a lot of stress to deal with.
Yeah, it does. I mean, with Andy, what we did is we went over a series of a week, and we went out at rush hour, and we went out Monday rush hour right through to Friday rush hour, so that it could be the worst it could ever get. And on the Monday, Andy, by his own admission, would say that it wasn't very good. But by Friday, absolutely drove like a dream. Wasn't a problem. Could deal with the pressure. If it's looking at techniques just to deal with that pressure, taking that extra second. You know, the car behind you is not going to drive over the top of you, but if you pull out, somebody's going to drive into the side of you. So it's just learning to just almost drive within themselves and drive within their own bubble, knowing what's going on around them, and just being able to, learning to deal with that pressure. Same with the driving test. A lot of 17, 18-year-olds really build the driving test up into something, other than... Yeah, exactly, which is, even I did it. But it's trying
your whole
to...
social life depends on
it does,
1 hour.
Yes, you're right. It's just taking that step back and just sort of like just taking those extra deep breaths, taking that extra second to do something, because it might make the difference. And it's learning how to do that all the time consistently.
Well, Kathy, no doubt we'll be following your daughter Lydia's progress in the weeks and months to come. Lovely to have you joining us this morning, and as I say, we will speak to you soon. Give our love to Lydia, won't you?
I will. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We will follow that progress with interest. I must just finally ask you, before I let you go, Mark, we've been talking about manners on the show for the last couple of hours. Just in general, the etiquette in society, it has been mentioned, manners on the roads, which is a whole new subject.
You could do an entire show on that.
You really could. You're obviously out and about all day, every day. Manners on the road, are they getting better or are they getting worse?
They're getting worse,
Really?
unfortunately. Yeah, they're getting worse, especially rush hours. Everybody needs to be somewhere 30 seconds earlier than they really need to do. Never understood that, because you can't do a lot in 30 seconds. For instance, we were sat in the traffic jams the other Friday, and whoever the BMW driver was behind me and my learner, please don't get upset next time, because the reason she was taking so long to move off was because I couldn't stick a cigarette paper in between my back bumper and your front bumper. So
did they pip at you? There's nothing worse.
Yeah, we had the full pip. We had sort of like sign language of some sort.
To a learner, that's despicable.
It happens all the time, and it's just because, unfortunately on learner cars, I guess we haven't got signs saying this learner is on their 10th lesson or this learner is on their 50th lesson. They are test ready. We haven't, unfortunately. They all learnt once, so
we were all learning once. We all had those plates on. I remember someone pipping at me, and I never forgot it. It shattered my confidence for weeks.
It does, yes, it does, yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for joining us with an update. We'll be following your new pupil and yourself with close interest. Lovely to have you in on the studio. If you want to hang around, you can, because the man with the posh food's arrived.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
It's not just any food, it's Michelin-starred food.
Definitely.
Yeah, and he'll be here after the news. Marc, for now, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.